Welcome back to Built with AI. In this episode, we're going to be talking to Vlad.
Back in the day, I would search the internet for recipes and put into a Notion database, and that was okay, but it was very tedious.
Vlad shipped a meal planning product with a built-in AI agent, and it's one of the more impressive applications I've actually seen. It has integrations with Instagram to extract recipes and Instacart in order to prepare and order your food for you for your week.
I decided to try to take these AI capabilities and build a better experience around it.
This one's really exciting. We're obviously going to get to see behind the scenes as well as Vlad ships a brand new feature inside the product.
Now we got to figure out what happened.
I'm Colin, a health tech PM and chronic side hustler turned solopreneur. I've built SaaS apps that have made $0, hundreds of dollars, and hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm excited to bring you stories of people in product design and engineering who have done the same.
Doing a demo is really easy. Getting it to be really, really good is really hard. Getting 80% of the way there is 4 hours, and then going from 80 to 100 is 4 months maybe.
So I'm excited to dive in. When you're ready, I'll see you in there.
So we're going to chat a little bit about what you've been building and your background. We'll start with the background side of things. So, are you kind of more technical? You work in product? What's the deal there?
Yeah, so I'm a product manager, and I've spent time building platformy, technical type products and data type products. And for the last few years, I've been an AI PM. But I'm always hacking around on side projects and tinkering on nights and weekends. I oftentimes have this itch to build something that solves a problem that I have. Back in the day, I used to Google search how to do stuff and copy and paste code from Stack Overflow. And recently with the AI coding tools, is just really awesome how much easier it is. And I'm having way more fun, and it's an exciting time to be building.
Yeah, for sure. I think probably the best time to be building. Not that this is about me, but I used to build web apps as well a lot, and it took me 6 months to ship something not super complicated. Because it's nights and weekends, like you said. But now you can do probably the same amount of work in maybe 3 weeks, 2 weeks, something like that. That's my opinion anyway. But anyway, yeah. What are you working on right now?
Yeah, so I built this AI agent meal planner app called Saffie.ai to solve a problem that I had. So I do all of the meal planning and grocery shopping for my family, and it just takes so much time. It takes me hours each week to plan all the meals, to get all the groceries. There's this decision fatigue as well. Am I cooking the same things over and over again? Should I try a new recipe? Am I letting food go to waste and stuff like that? And it really just takes away time from things I actually want to do. Back in the day, I would search the internet for recipes and put into a Notion database, and that was okay, but it was very tedious. And then I started using ChatGPT to do this, and I was actually surprised with how good the recipes were and how well it learns your taste. I mean, probably the recipes are on the internet. It was used in the training data, so it makes sense. But, it's just a wall of text that lives in a chat thread somewhere. It's not fun to look at. There's no calendar to look back at. There's no list to check off. And so I decided to try to take these AI capabilities and kind of try to build a better experience around it. Kind of similar to how, a few years ago, I used to copy and paste code from ChatGPT to my IDE. And then, recently with Cursor, it's you're chatting with an agent that would interact with the code base for you. So now I'm using this agent to do all the meal planning and grocery stuff for me.
Cool. Okay. So basically saves you time, a little bit of decision fatigue, like you said. I think a lot of people have this problem, to be honest. Hopefully you get some users from the pod because, meal planning kind of sucks if you have to do it every single week. But I'd love to see a demo if you have one to share.
Yeah, let me pull up a demo here. I'm going to just start it and then kind of start talking when it loads.
Yeah, no worries. What is SweetPad, by the way?
It's a way that I don't have to use Xcode. Besides, when I actually deploy it to the App Store, you can kind of run it using that.
Well, I've talked to a couple people, and there's most people flip back and forth between Xcode and Cursor.
Yeah, I saw some video from some guy on Twitter with a bunch of tips of you don't have to use Xcode at all, just use Cursor, and there was some extensions, I think.
That's cool.
Yeah. Okay, so let me show you a quick demo of how Saffie.ai works. So this is the meal plan screen. You have breakfast, lunch, and dinner for all the days. As you can see, Wednesday here, we have this lunch that you can click into. All of this is AI generated. You have a chat with Saffie.ai button to go into the chat mode. You also have groceries and cookbook for saved recipes and profile and stuff like that. I'll kind of just share a few things that I think people would probably end up doing, or some things that I go through, my workflows here. So the first one is I don't know exactly what I want, but I kind of have an idea, and like I want to choose like from a few options. So like this one is give me 3 light summery salads that I can finish in under 20 minutes, different lean proteins, no leafy lettuce. So it gives you a few options here. And then I can go like add 1 to Monday lunch, or I don't know if I said dinner or lunch, but there's the next step of telling the agent like, okay, actually add it to the plan. We're done ideating. I've chosen this particular one. And then it knows to use that particular tool, which is like adding it to the database. And so on Monday, now this is being added. So the recipe name is here and the image is still loading. The images take a little bit of time to kind of load. It takes like 15 seconds. I'm using the Flux 1.1 model for the images. So that's like one use case. There's another one that's like, I just want to go quickly. Like, I don't care about choosing an option. Just like put this into my meal plan, which is dinner in 15 minutes, like 1 pot dish, 30 grams protein, just add it to Tuesday. And so it knows like which tools to use and when, and then adds it to the Tuesday meal plan and kind of tells you here as well. And so Tuesday dinner, it's adding that here. The cool thing is like you can be as creative as you want, and like, here's an example. I want to eat like Beyonce. Give me breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Add it to my meal plan on Thursday. I'm not sure if like there's training data that was included that it's kind of referencing, or if it's hallucinating all of this. But I think it's kind of fun to kind of play around and be creative. And I actually found that it works quite well with like celebrity meal plans. And you can kind of just give it your vibes. Like, oh, it's like 100 degrees right now in the summer. Like, give me some dinners to eat. So you can kind of just go as flexible as you can in terms of like describing stuff, and it'll give you a response each time. I don't have like evals, and it'll be interesting. I would love to do some like evals at some point of like how do you even like measure the accuracy and the quality of the evals. But like right now it's just been based on vibes, and so it's funny here, like the recipe names, it always prepends like Beyonce inspired here.
Yeah.
And then we can check it out. On Thursday, we have Beyonce-inspired egg white omelet.
There you go.
There's another tool that is included in the OpenAI Agents SDK for like web search. I won't demo that right now, but like, yeah, it can search the web, and like you can say, give me popular air fry recipes, and it'll kind of find those and give them to you. The one other cool thing that I added was a lot of times what people do is, and I do it as well, you see like a interesting recipe on TikTok or Instagram and you want to cook that, but you kind of have to like figure out like, what are the ingredients? What do I have to buy? How do you cook it, etc. And sometimes they like write it out and sometimes they don't. And so I added this feature to, it's a tool that the orchestrator agent can use, and it calls it when there's like a social media link, which was really fun to build. So it like downloads the raw MP4 file using this open source library. And then it uses like 3 signals to get the structured recipe output. One is just the text description. Maybe the creator put the recipe in there. 2 is the audio. Maybe they're talking about the recipe, so you can transcribe the audio using a transcription model. And then 3 is sometimes they don't put the recipe in the description or the audio, but it's in the video somewhere. And so I slice the video into frames, like 1 image every half second, and send all the images to an LLM. And then all of those are signals to like, hey, what's the final recipe? And it actually works really well. Again, I don't have like formal evals, but based on vibes, like the recipe works out pretty well. Like this is a watermelon, berries, and feta salad with ingredients here, instructions here. And then you can go ahead and add it to your meal plan if you want. That's kind of like the demo on the meal plan and the chat functionality. I think the other features are kind of table stakes and just quality of life stuff where, I added a few recipes to the meal plan for this week. I need to go shop for them. And so there's this grocery tab that like does all the normalization and deduplication of like all the ingredients you need. The cool thing that this is actually the feature I built to actually use it myself. Which is like, I don't buy all the ingredients like in one go. Like I just want to shop for like Thursday dinner. So like, I don't want to buy everything. So I just want to do that one, and then I click done, and then it just pulls in the ingredients you need for Thursday dinner. And then you can click order with Instacart. if you want to really save time, they have a great developer platform, and everything gets populated in your Instacart. If you have the app, it opens up the app, and then it's just a really quick way to kind of do all of the meal planning stuff.
First of all, it's incredible. It's a very complex application, as folks can probably tell. You have an AI agent working in the background. You have an integration with Instagram. I guess first of all, just kudos, because I know this type of stuff is not simple to build. I guess one question, how long have you been working on this for? Just to give people a frame of reference.
It probably took me a few weeks, maybe 4 weeks.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty impressive. I guess one follow-up question is how much prior knowledge did you have on working with LLMs and agents and integrations and that kind of stuff?
A good amount, I would say. Like I said, I'm always tinkering around with new technology. I have a bunch of side projects throughout the years that I've learned a number of lessons on how to build stuff. All of it is simple things. I haven't built super complex things, but I think it definitely helps if you have context. There's different levels of abstraction. Should you understand how things work from super high level, I'm making a meal planning app, just go build that. Probably that's too high level, but you don't really need to, for some things like this, understand it from super deep, the ones and zeros. But somewhere in between there, I think is a nice sweet spot. And I also think that learning how things work, I think, is important, so you can kind of review the code and review kind of how things are working. And you can also ask the questions to go ahead and learn. I think what I do is I don't just click a button and everything kind of just happens. I try to learn at least a little bit about how things work to kind of make it more efficient in the future for me.
Yeah. One really common question I get, and I'm curious for your answer, is how did you decide on what technologies to use? Did you already know the agents SDK existed, or did the AI tell you how to build an AI agent?
Yeah, I think I listened to some podcasts and they were hey, OpenAI just launched this agents SDK. And initially I was just oh, I want to test it out and just tinker around with it. So I didn't have an intention of building a whole thing. For a lot of things I ask Claude or ChatGPT, this is what I want to build. I'm a solo dev who doesn't have a lot of experience. So just give me the simplest way that I can build this, and recommend Supabase a lot for database and auth. It probably would have recommended a different agents SDK. I know there's a lot of other ones out there, but I just kind of took this one because it was newly live and I just was playing around with it.
Yeah, kind of similar for me. A lot of things that have ended up working is mostly because I've tried and played around with stuff, and then it kind of compounds over time, even though you might not think of it that way. When you're doing it, you're messing around with some new technology or some new tool, but later on it's useful. So yeah, that's super cool to hear. I guess I did have one other follow-up question on the agent side. So you mentioned you don't have evals. That kind of makes sense to me. Like you said, how do you evaluate, other than the format, right? Does it output a recipe? You can't really say it's a good recipe or not. But how difficult was it to set up the agent? Is it the first time you built something that has an agent in it? Or, you mentioned side projects before.
Yeah, it was the first time that I built an agent. I built other ChatGPT wrapper type things before, where it's I built this bedtime story for kids generator. You type in your kid's name and things that they like, and then it just sends off a request to the LLM and has an image and a bedtime story. So that was very simple, just one API call or a few API calls, and not really an agent. So this is the first time I was building an actual agent, but it wasn't that hard to I feel with this new thing, it doing a demo is really easy. Getting it to be really, really good is really hard. I think getting 80% of the way there is 4 hours, and then going from 80 to 100 is 4 months maybe.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know how we would do evals with this. I can kind of think through ways, ask users to rate recipes and then use that feedback. You can use an LM as a judge. I want to try these things. I think it'll be cool. At this point, I just have looked at a lot of them, and like I said, going based on vibes. The first thing I did was just use I did this exact thing, but in terminal. And so I just typed in terminal, and then it would respond as text in terminal. And I kind of just modified the system prompt and all that stuff, just based on my early conversations.
Cool. Yeah. So I think just on the technology side here, you mentioned, I think you're using Supabase on the back end. Is that right?
Yeah. So the back end is Supabase for database and authentication. The other parts of the back end, I'm using Railway to run the back end, and it's Python and WebSockets, and that's running the Agents SDK. The front end is native SwiftUI. I used Cursor to kind of build the early part. I've been using Claude Code more recently. I think that's kind of the main parts. I mentioned I'm using the Flux models for AI images. That was one where I had like, not a real eval, but like I looked through a bunch and like I was like hoping that the OpenAI image gen would be like really great, so I could just stick with one.
Yeah.
But with food, it just doesn't look that real. And so I don't know. I tried a bunch of the image models, and the Flux models looked the best for the image generation.
That's awesome. I mean, like I said, super impressive. I think this would take the average person a lot longer than 3 or 4 weeks to build, maybe like 3 or 4 months. But anyway, I'm curious if you could show us like what it looks like to ship a new feature, like something small with your stack.
Yeah, I'd love to show a demo of building a feature that I've been dying to build. One of my earliest users of this app was my wife, and she's been recommending me a feature for a while. When she uses the app and she kind of finds the recipe she likes, what she does now is she just sends me a screenshot of it, which is okay, but sending a screenshot is not the best way to relay that information. And I was thinking about it, and it's like, I think it would be really cool if there was at some point in the future this like sharing capability, but also this like household collaboration of like, here are the recipes that we like as a household, and we can all contribute to that. Here's what our meal plan is for the whole week. We can all contribute to that and vote, and it gets our taste profile. And we can even share a recipe to someone else that does not have the app, and they can still see it and maybe see that it was created by this app and download it themselves. So, got me a lot of ideas brewing. I would like to build something like a simple version of what I just said, which is just like, hey, there's a recipe, you can share it with someone, and they can just see it, the recipe details. And then I think that's it. I in the future, like if you have the app, it would like auto import, but I think for this like MVP, I think that'll be like good enough.
Yeah. So just to clarify, one question I had is like, when you share it, is it going to be like a link to a website or something else?
Yeah, a link to a website. I was thinking through like what's the simplest way to like actually do this. I think again, ideally, like if you using like the native iOS share thing, like click a button, it like opens up the extension on the bottom. You can go to iMessage and just share it. And then if you have the app installed, then it opens in the app and you can like import it or something like that. But I think like for the simplest version, it's like there's a share extension button and you can share via iMessage. When you click the link, it opens up a web page where you see all the recipe information. So at least like you can go to the store and buy those ingredients, so you can like have that open while you're cooking and just stuff like that.
Got it. Okay. And then again, I'm just curious, do you already have a web version of this application where like people can use it, or are we also building it at the same time?
Yeah, there's a website, Saffie.ai, and right now it's just a landing page that has a link to the App Store. Funny thing, I actually was building this, the first version was a terminal command line interface. The second version was like a website where I told like Bolt.new, like, hey, build a cursor for meal planning. And like, it looked exactly like Cursor. And I had a chat on one side and I had like a calendar of meals on the other side. And I thought that was really cool. But then I thought like how people are going to be using this is not like on their desktop. It's probably going to be like a mobile device. They're going to go to the store with the phone. They're not going to want to cook while looking at their laptop. And so I kind of built a mobile app after that. But I shut down that like functionality from the website to kind of focus on the mobile app. But yeah, there is a website out there.
Yeah. And while Claude's working on this, talk to me a little bit about like Claude Code. So you mentioned you're sitting in Cursor right now, but using Claude Code as like the primary, I guess, AI coding tool here.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. I'm kind of just learning as I go and reading what people have to say. A few months ago, I was using Cursor and the models that Cursor provides, and I switched to Claude Code recently. Again, based on vibes, it feels better. I kind of heard that like if one company is owning the models, then they are also most likely the best poised to be creating the highest quality tools for the model to use. And that could be why it's like more performant and better quality. I don't know, but I'm kind of just having fun and figuring things out as I go. I don't use like the built-in like think mode or whatever they call it. So this prompt is like kind of high level. Like I want to implement recipe sharing feature. Here's a desired flow. User opens recipe in the iOS app. They tap a share button. the app generates a URL. Like I already have this URL, but this is a new path. They can share the URL. Anybody can open it and they don't have to log in. So that's like high level. There's some other stuff in there like works in both dev and prod that I added so that we can actually show the demo now, and things like that. So I do like to also say like your first task is to understand my request and then look at the code base and understand that. And then ask me any questions if you need clarification. I don't know. I just always do that. I probably read that somewhere. And then I've been doing the thing where like create like a implementation plan in like a markdown file and then check in with me, don't code yet. There might be better ways to do this, and maybe their like thinking planning mode works great now. And there's other tools, I'm sure, but this is kind of what I've been going with.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like I almost feel like the patterns here are, it's like rumors almost. Do you know what I mean? Like you see one YouTube video or you like see one post somewhere, but like, hey, I used this and it worked best and whatever. It's very hard to nail down like what the actual best thing is because no one can compare really. But I guess to give you like the way I'm doing things, very similar, very, very similar to what you're doing. I do use the plan mode at times if I'm being lazy and I don't want to create an MD file. But for larger changes, I still do the same thing. I create the kind of the MD file. I just find for like small stuff, it's a nice in between, right? Because it does the planning step, outputs a plan, but I don't need to create a whole separate file and manage that file. So
yeah, that makes sense. Like depending on the complexity, you kind of try to one shot it or kind of go step by step. And like that also changes like whether I actually read the code or whether I just say like just write out everything. I'll just like test it to see if it works. Like sometimes I actually read the code and just, if anything, try to learn from it. I very rarely am like, you didn't do this right because I don't know enough. In this particular case, so I asked it like, ask me if you need anything clarified. So I don't have the Supabase MCP installed for Claude Code. And so I wasn't able to like know what my database was like. And so it's like, hey, run this SQL command. And then I ran it and kind of gave it all of the details. And so it said, hey, now I got everything I need. I like running Claude Code and Cursor so I can like see the file. Like I don't spend too much time reading what it says, but I think at a high level, it's good to understand. So we don't need to change anything in the database. We got some new routes. Oh, actually, I don't think we need to do this part. And so let me try to do this live here. What else we got to change? Definitely need new endpoints. Publicly accessible. iOS stuff. Okay, we don't need the security stuff as well. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing here by clicking no, but let me tell it. So we don't need to update the database at all, and we don't care about security. Please update. Think very hard, please.
So why think very hard?
I think Anthropic released some documentation. I forgot exactly what the terms are, but if you say think hard, think harder, or ultra think, then I think it just spends more tokens doing the thinking. Have you heard about that?
Yeah. I saw the same thing. But I use it every once in a while. It's kind of hard to tell. Like there's so many different ways of prompting to remember like what to do, and it's hard to evaluate if it's actually better. So I just throw it in sometimes if I think it's going to be hard. I'm like, yeah, okay, think harder. But yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think this would be that hard. Also, like, I probably could have like used the Opus model to like do the beginning part. I think I've heard people say that do the planning with Opus and then do the coding with Sonnet, but I think I'm just doing this all with Sonnet.
Yeah, I mostly use Sonnet as well.
Okay, so database stays the same. We just need new endpoints. Some TypeScript stuff. I love how it says like total estimated time, 4 to 5 days. Like why are you even guessing how long it'll take? hopefully you'll do this in 5 minutes.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Also, I mean, you can kind of see like it always does a little bit more than it should, eh? Like it writes all this extra stuff that you don't really need. But so why did you decide that you didn't need to change the data model?
I think that it's probably for security reasons or something. Like you only want like certain, maybe it's not for security reasons, but the database, the recipes table, it like has everything already there. Maybe it's like better for some reason, and I could have like asked it like, hey, well, why are you doing this? It would have told me. But for a very, very simple feature, like the recipe exists in the table with an ID. You just grab the details from the ID because the ID of the recipe is in the URL and just like display it in the front end. So like for a very, very bare bones version, like you don't need to change the table schema at all. So I just knew that if I was like building this for like a long-term robust way, I probably would have asked like, why are you doing this? What are the pros and cons? Give me a few options. What's your recommendation? Why are you recommending this and that kind of thing? And if I'm building like a complex thing, I would probably do that.
Yeah. I just think it's somewhat interesting because probably for folks listening, like one of the challenges they have is that kind of judgment part that you just displayed, where it's like, oh, I don't need to make this change that it recommended because I know that this feature could be accomplished in this other way that's simpler. So let me go back and tell the model like, no, actually you're overcomplicating it and do it this way instead. How did you do that? Is that just from prior knowledge? Like, how did you do that?
I think it's just from some basic understanding of like the table schema that this app has, and like knowing what like a really bare bones version would be. But I think it's just important to like learn to some level of abstraction, like what's going on. And I think like if you're a software engineer, you can probably like already know that stuff and kind of use that. If you're not, and vibe coding, I think like you can vibe code and you can just auto accept edits like I'm doing and like not look at stuff. But I think it just sometimes helps to like learn what's going on. Maybe in the future we won't need to, but I feel like right now, like learning a little bit is probably useful. So that you can like make decisions like this. And again, in my prompt, I could have said like, whenever you make any decision at all that requires you to like change anything, like make sure that you specify every single possible option that you could use to make that change, and like give me all the pros and cons, and like I'll make the decisions and like teach me about like the pros and cons, all that stuff. I think that's useful.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe one day we'll have like some type of integrated platform where it's like, connects to Stripe, connects to, Vercel for hosting or Render or whatever, Railway, and like just does the whole thing. That'd be pretty cool. But for now, you kind of have to glue it together yourself, right?
Yeah. I think, what was it, Andre Karpathy that was saying like actually coding something is actually super easy, but then it took him like hours to click the right buttons to actually deploy it, right? And I think those companies are like building MCPs. I'm not sure if Stripe and Vercel have. Maybe they already have them. But yeah, I think it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, for sure. There's still the issue with like the agent doing things in the right order. So you get up with even if you give them like you gave them the Stripe tools, you gave them the deployment tools. I don't know personally right now if I would trust an agent to like do everything correctly, especially once it's live. Like it adds keys to your Stripe account. That's a little dangerous. But you know. Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, like in the next year or so, we'll be there.
Yeah, I wonder how much people will actually need to know about things. I'm not sure. I think it's an open question. I do feel like at some level of abstraction, it's going to be useful, but I could be proven wrong very soon. So let's run this and see what's going to happen. Okay. So we got this share button. We got copy. We have localhost, which is good. Let me go to Safari. And the moment of truth. Okay, so it prepended something to the URL, so I can obviously change that part. Paste just the URL. Oops. And let's see what happens. Uh-oh, that's not good. So now we got to figure out what happened. As a first step here, before I go into the logs, I'm going to just say like getting error. This string did not match. Actually, you know what? Let me turn on Opus for this.
Yeah, good idea.
Sometimes it one-shots, and sometimes there's an error, and it's like a super simple, like, here's the error, and then it goes and finds it and fixes it in one shot. And sometimes it just takes a while. Like, I was working on this like feature where in the app, it was very laggy when you were scrolling through all the recipes. It would just lag a lot. I was like, okay, maybe there's like image caching or something. I don't know. And I used Opus and I was like, ultra think on this and like give me all the possible reasons why it could be, not working. And like it listed 5 reasons. I don't know if that's right, but let's see. It said it found the root cause, and the model listed 5 reasons why it's laggy, and then I implemented all of them, and it was still laggy. How I proceeded there is, I was like, okay, tell me what the goal is, what we're trying to solve. Tell me everything that you've tried in like decent detail to fix it, because none of them worked. And then I copied that output and put it into a new Claude Code window. And I said, hey, this is the goal. Here's what we've tried so far. Didn't work. Like, have at it. And then the first recommendation of the next Claude Code actually worked. So nice. That's something that I found worked pretty well. All right, let's see. The problem is that there's a validation error. I don't know exactly what this means, but hopefully it fixed it.
Yeah, we'll see.
The recipe sharing feature should now work correctly. Well, let's see. Could I get just the URL? Uh-oh. Didn't work again. Okay.
So this is the fun part, right?
This is the very fun part.
Yeah.
I don't even know, like, okay, how would I go about this? I'm going to restart this thing. And I'm going to restart this thing. Okay. The debugging and stuff is just annoying sometimes. Because then it's like, okay, you got to... Sometimes, like, it just puts a lot of text there. You don't know, like, what you have to copy and paste.
Yeah.
All right.
Usually I just do everything, to be honest. I just grab as much as I can fit.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. LLMs are very good at like taking random information and making meaning out of it, right?
I'm not even seeing it in the logs, I don't think.
Yeah, the request.
I think at this point, what I will try is asking it to log more stuff.
Yeah. So you're basically getting it to log out information of like what's happening behind the scenes and then grab that as context and throw it back in.
Exactly. And the thing is like this could take a second, this could take like an hour, this could take 5 hours. I don't know. That's the fun part.
Do you ever like try to poke around yourself and sort it out, or mostly rely on the AI here?
I peruse the logs, but I am not the best option to go in and fix stuff for sure. What about you?
Yeah, like for something like this, I would probably take a look at the endpoint.
Like add logs to the endpoint?
Yeah.
It looks like this is that, right? Get public.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so add logs there, make sure that that's, and then just generally make sure that like it's I understand how the endpoint's working, because sometimes it does weird stuff like right now it's using a token, right? I don't know if you have your IDs as UUIDs or as numbers, but like for example, if your ID for the recipe is an integer and it's using this like UUID pattern, then we know like it's not using the same ID, right? So like there's just small stuff like that I would look at.
Yeah. I think it's a UUID.
Yeah. It's Supabase, right? So yeah, I think it is UUIDs by default.
Yeah. All right. What? I gotta go to test? I don't want to go to test. Okay, it says public recipe endpoint is working. But what happens when we actually try it? Like, I don't know what this means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, usually it's just this kind of iteration, right? Like,
yeah,
copy paste. Can you get logs out of the iOS app, like the simulator, or no?
Yeah, on the bottom, this is the logs from the iOS.
Ah, okay.
Add logs to both the full front end URL and iOS app.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if that works.
Yeah. Don't worry. And the funny thing is like, I mean, the tools are non-deterministic. So I think one is like, it is useful for people to see that like I mean, this is a great example. Like you already shipped this feature, it works first try, and you go to do the exact same thing. You could even copy paste the same prompts and not get the same result, right?
Yeah, I literally copy and pasted the same prompts.
Yeah.
And a few hours ago, I just click, it worked fine.
Yeah. So I think it's great because I think the valuable part here is that no matter what, you kind of have to learn how to debug, right? Because you can't expect that it's going to work all the time, right? Yeah,
I'm really happy that it didn't work for the podcast.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's the best time for it to not work. But yeah, no, I think it's useful because, I think some folks have this vision of like AI and AI coding being like this thing that just does everything automatically and perfectly, and they're somehow missing out if they don't, have that result. But that's not super realistic, to be honest.
Not realistic all the time.
Yeah, it does feel good when it works. As an aside, I'm working on this tool that has it's built basically used to like extract components from a website and rebuild them. So like if I wanted to take your website and like pull out all the different UI elements, so I could prototype with those UI elements, it pulls out those elements and rebuilds them. And originally I built it as an integration with V0, and it worked pretty well because they recently rolled out an API where you can connect directly to their stuff. And then I one-shot modified it, or I guess migrated it to like internal hosting of the code. So before it was hosted by V0, I set up a hosting platform, the code generation, and got everything working together in one request. And I was like extremely surprised that it worked because I fully expected to spend hours on it. But anyway, yeah. So sometimes you get lucky.
Does it feel better if it one-shots it, or does it feel better when you're like struggling and then you finally get it after a long time?
I think the problem with one-shotting is there's no incentive for me to learn why it worked, and so I know less about the application. It feels better in the moment, but I think it's maybe worse in the long run, to be honest.
All right, so we got logging in the iOS app and the front end and the back end, but I don't see it in the back end. I didn't see anything. Maybe it thinks that I'm running this, not in a, maybe the simulator thing is making things tough. Because this happened before where it's like doesn't work in the simulator, but it works on like a real phone, and like dev environment stuff is like tricky. Okay, so as expected, didn't work. But here is the iOS logs, and I don't even know. Oh, no valid authorization header for optional user. Maybe it's that.
That looks like
I don't know.
Thing. Yeah, there you go.
I don't know, just all of
that's
this.
That's how I do it, to be honest. Like just as much as you can get, fit it in. Yeah, that's one like perk of LLMs is they're very good at just parsing text like that, so you don't have to try to figure it out yourself.
Let me add the context of in simulator on iOS. Recipe detail view. And like, honestly, sometimes it's probably best to just delete all the code and go back to the PRD or the docs and just say like, build this. And I might do that next.
Yeah, just re-roll basically, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess for people who haven't used Claude Code, it does not have any type of like version control built into it, right? So you can't roll back to a prior message or anything like that. So it looks like you're using Git as like the primary way to track changes. Is that right?
Yes. I did love the historical messages thing in Cursor, and like going back to a previous one. Claude Code does not have that, but I'm using Git. What does this say?
Oh, I think what it's saying is that it thinks that the logs that you shared include the browser console logs, which would be the logs inside of Safari. I think that's what it's saying.
So it's wrong, right? We should be like, no.
Yeah. Yeah, because it thinks that the React app isn't loading at all, but obviously it is because you're getting the error screen, right?
Yeah. You know, maybe I should load this in the browser and then do the DevTools thing. Okay. I think that might tell us. I don't know what this is. It's probably not right?
Yeah, so it's saying some type of Vite configuration change. I wouldn't start there because those things are kind of hard to undo at times.
The page loads. I see a green button. Okay. And then, where is it? Somewhere here, error fetching recipe.
Yeah.
So that's probably it.
Yeah, that error is actually super common. The one where it says like returned HTML expecting JSON. Because what's happening is that there's an error on the server side and it returns back an HTML file that is an error. But the client is expecting it to be JSON. So there's an unhandled server-side error, basically, somewhere.
Do you think Claude is saying the truth here?
So let's see. Is not valid JSON. API is returning HTML likely Vite instead of JSON. Front end is trying to call it, but it's not being proxied to the back end correctly. I would probably say, like, I think this is an unhandled error, and it's returning HTML as default. Something like that. Can you check the server side for like try to trace the error through the server side, something like that. Also, if you want to, you can just re-roll if we're gotten too far in this.
I'll just try this out and try your thing next.
Yeah. One other thing for folks who are listening, like all this stuff is totally fine, obviously, because as Vlad mentioned, you can just undo it if you're using Git. But if you change your database at all, then that's not the same, right?
There we go.
There you go. It worked.
Okay, so this was the debug thing, but in general, it has this recipe. Yeah. Yeah, I think I was very close to just like deleting everything, RMRF, and starting from scratch. Yeah, so we see recipe name, all of that stuff. I guess what I would do at this point is like just update it from here, like iterate on this. Like I personally like used to start projects with like open up Figma, design something, like what do I want to build, and then go build it. But like now I just like say, hey, just like build something, and then I can see something and then react to it. It's just a way quicker way, at least for me, to like iterate on it. Like here I'd be like, okay, well I want to add the image, and then I want to remove this nutritional information. Those are columns in my database that I don't even use. I do like this. And so I would just like go iterate from there, and let's see if it works on something else. But yeah, that was a fun ride.
Yes, for sure. I think it's good though. I mean, we got there in the end, which is always, a nice payoff. But yeah, I think it's a nice like kind of realistic depiction of what it's like to use these tools. Still though, I mean, like if you're not a developer, shipping that kind of feature in it's probably like 25 minutes from when we started, it's pretty good, right? Considering like you didn't have any of that functionality before.
Yeah. And I think like with other things, you have to like do, like I already know that opening something, like if like for the next like what I actually want to build is like if I get this URL in iMessage and I click on it, like if I have the app installed, then it goes to the app. If I don't, it goes to the web page. Like building that feature, you got to do some custom Apple stuff, and it'll just take longer. But I found that like the models are pretty good at like searching the web for like the documentation, and like it's clicking a lot of buttons and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. All right, yeah, this was awesome. So anything else you want to add before we wrap up on the feature? I
think I've been having a lot of fun building these projects and tinkering around. For Saffie.ai in particular, I think we can build a lot of cool stuff here. I think like right now, how ChatGPT works is like there's a memory of you, and I want to add something like that here. I think like right now there's kind of generic preferences, like how many people in your household, and are you allergic to anything, and do you like Mexican food or Italian food, that kind of thing. But if it has like all of the context of like you cooked these 10 recipes, you like these 7 for these reasons, and you didn't like these 3 for those reasons, and like it can create like a taste profile, and then put that into the context for each time it would generate recipes. And in theory, that should have way better kind of recipes that are being generated to your taste profile. So I'm excited to kind of build that. I think like this memory thing is like going to be a super cool thing. And I think a lot of people are talking about memory for AI agents. So that's like a cool thing I'm looking forward to. And also, I know that the kind of first attempt of like people working with AI is like this chat box, and it's great. It's very flexible, but like probably not the best interface to do everything. And so for this, like at first I built like just a chat to do everything. And that's definitely not the best way to do stuff. Like in the beginning, to even delete a recipe, I had to go into chat and say, delete this, which like obviously isn't the best, right? I have like a delete button, but like where's like the line, and like which things should be done via chat, which things should be done via more intuitive interfaces. I think I'm interested in like trying to figure that out. And I think a lot of other people are trying to figure that out as well. And then in the future, we already talked about like doing evals and potentially fine tuning models to get better. But I think that's a little bit far out right now. But yeah, this has been a super fun thing to kind of build and learn how to use all this new technology.
Yeah, awesome. And then, just 2 questions to wrap up. So one is, in terms of users, is it primarily like yourself and your family right now, or are there other folks using it as well?
I think I launched it like a few weeks ago, and there's like a few hundred users.
Nice. That's great. Is it free or paid?
There is a 7-day free trial, and then it is paid. So the API costs are real.
Yeah. Do you have revenue so far?
Yeah, there's a few hundred. I've made a few $100 right so far. It's covering the API costs. I think the image generation is the most expensive thing because I'm using Flux 1.1 Ultra or something, which is like 5 cents per image. The other models are not too expensive, but yeah.
Yeah, cool. And then last question, just where can folks find you online if they want to check out your stuff?
Yeah, reach out to me on Twitter. you can look at Saffie.ai, and my contact info is there as well. And yeah, if anybody wants to kind of team up on the marketing side, vibe coding for me is way easier than vibe marketing. So hit me up.
Well, yeah, thanks again, Vlad. I think this was an awesome demo. I know we went down like a little bit of a detour there, but I think it's useful for people to see. And yeah, I mean, obviously super cool application. So thanks for sharing.
Thanks, Colin.